HISD's new superintendent says he's making special education students his top priority after a scathing report published by the Houston Chronicle about how the district is allegedly limiting access to special ed programs. HISD Superintendent Richard Carranza has ordered a special investigation to get to the bottom of the claims. Only 7% of HISD students have been receiving special ed services, about half the national average. Is a lower number of special ed students a good thing, like the district argues, or does it mean Texas students are being shortchanged? That's our topic this half hour. Joining us in our newsroom is Fox 26 senior legal analyst Chris Tritico, Democratic media consultant Mustafa Tamiz, and Republican strategist and public policy analyst Jackie Valley. All right, this all stemmed from the Texas Education Agency more than a decade ago setting a benchmark, or some call it a cap, of 8.5% of students being in special ed, and the district responded with an even lower number. So where does this take us now?
In all fairness, I do represent teachers in the Houston Federation of Teachers and several other teachers unions, and I guess HISD just wanted to be first and on top of this and beat the state at its own game in 7%. What this does is ensures that there are children out there who have not been getting services that are required under the IDEA, the federal law that requires school districts to provide special education services to children. The Houston Chronicle reported on Saturday morning that a child who's suing HISD, who's blind and was denied special education services, Mustafa, by HISD, who in an ARD meeting said, you don't need special education services.
Look, I think that we're focusing on HISD because they're 7% rather than 8.5% that the state requires. Our focus really should be at our state and our state leaders, because we are half at the national average. Our cap is half of what the national average is, and so we're starting with an unrealistic expectation, and the school districts are just trying to figure out how do they fit within the school finance system to begin with. HISD should do better, and I think that they will, but our bigger issue is that we're setting the wrong policies and the wrong agenda at state level.
He's absolutely right about that. It was a systematic system by the state, filtered down to the districts. Dallas ISD, HISD, all the big districts went along with this, and HISD is at the top, ahead of every other district, in ensuring that children are denied services.
We need to be clear about the 8.5%. It's not a cap, as some are saying. It's not. There's no written policy that says you must have special education at 8.5%. This was a projection. This was an estimate or a benchmark that they said approximately this should be the percentage of your students, but there was nothing in writing that said you have to stay at that number. That's why you see many other school districts that are much higher than 8.5%. Again, this brings up an example of mismanagement at HISD. We've talked several times about the renaming of several schools and the millions that they've spent on just that alone, and this is another example of why they should be focusing on the students as opposed to doing superficial things like renaming schools and spending millions of dollars on that, instead of working on a 7% when you have a blind student who's saying, look, I do have special needs, and they turn him away.
If this benchmark was not a cap set by the state, why is the state now saying we're going to do away with it?
The state is saying we're going to do away with the projection, but there's nothing written, and you can laugh all you want to, but there's nothing written that says, no, he did. There's nothing written that says that you have to stay at 8.5%. You have many other districts higher than 8.5%.
Very few.
But you have others, and if it was a law, it would have, all districts would be at 8.5%.
Let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
All right, this is a hot topic on our Fox 26 Facebook page. Let's look at some of the comments now. Monty says there at the bottom, any third-party findings should be released unedited to the public. So he wants this investigation to be very transparent. Kimberly up at the top, just to paraphrase, says she's appalled by everything she's read. As a parent of a special needs child, she can't understand how this could happen. And then Miranda there in the middle says that this issue is complex on so many different levels. It'll be interesting to see how it's tackled. And she's absolutely right. I mean, districts are only given a certain amount of funding, and they have to decide, are we going to spend it on dropout programs, programs? Are we going to spend it on pre-K? But it's clear special education needs to be a priority, and that's what the legislature's got to decide this session.
Well, let me just answer that last part. Not only is it a priority, under the IDEA, it's mandatory, and they get funds dedicated by from the Federal Department of Education and through the state, dedicated to special education services for children who qualify. So this cap that was set by the state, or the benchmark set by the state, and then followed by the districts, is systematically denying children their services. Now, with respect to the other tweet, the third-party investigators, this will be public. It has to be a public record because it's a governmental entity. Respond to what Jackie was saying about the state benchmark.
Well, look, HISD is one of the largest. It's one of the largest districts. So when the state starts to create these benchmarks, in order for them to turn their ship, they have to be more aggressive in moving policy. The state didn't set the benchmark and didn't write it. They didn't just poof it, right? It has to be set a benchmark. They have to do it for a reason, and it affects funding, and that's why school districts are aggressive about changing their policies. But I also want to credit Bob Sanborn and Children at Risk for bringing this up and being aggressive about these type of issues. We need child service advocates to go out there and make these things public. Otherwise, we would never know, and I appreciate their leadership in doing this.
I want to thank our governor because, as you know, he has me working with him on education. He made education his top priority. I'm working with him on the public university level, but he also has a committee looking at these issues, looking at the education level. He and our Texas leaders have increased funding in the elementary level and school age level, and they are pledging and promising to do so again.
Well, we'll see what happens in the legislative session, because they've got a lot to work on now, getting back to the $4 billion that they cut out 8 years ago, and now on top of this with this special education issue that's going to be taking over part of the legislative session. We'll see. We'll be back in the next in about 20 minutes with another really good topic.
Okay, we look forward to seeing you.